as we all know, we all are experiencing the changes, the difficulties, but as well the opportunities, yes. And in this sense is that Hecho por Nosotros and Animaná has been working in an open space of dialogue, of collaboration in order to make this journey happen, in order to experience what is sustainability, what is circularity, what means to make collaboration work. So I feel today so grateful to each of you, to all the community of Hecho por Nosotros, students, professionals, leaders, artisans, producers of natural fibers, policymakers, academics around the world that came on board all these 15 years, letting us create this alive space. And today we have another opportunity to be all together in order to transit a new stage. So my invitation is to open our hearts in order to transcend our way of thinking, our roles, our different hats that we use every day, in order to let us go through this process of collaboration, yes, of integration.
For everyone to bring some ideas. And again, this is an interactive dialogue, so please feel free to chime in. Thank you.
Hi, Belen. This is Elaine. Hi, everyone. I hope you had the chance to hear me before. And I really appreciate the way you opened the discussion about policy. And you mentioned a word that is, I think, very important on the focus or concern with scale. And it came to my attention this morning. I was reading one of 20 or 30 different newsletters I receive every day. And it was one specific on climate technology. And the main topic or the main story was a partnership being formed between HSBC, the bank, the largest in Europe, in Asia, and Google. They are together forming a partnership to scale up development of climate technology. So that caught my attention. I'm a partnerships person, HSBC and Google forming a partnership. Let me read more about that. And then you go on the story and it says that HSBC will provide venture debt financing options to companies that are already part of a pre-selected group of Google Cloud Ready Sustainability Initiative. So that caught my attention. Okay, so HSBC is a bank, Google already screening companies here. And then it explains that Google Cloud allows member companies to help their customers reduce carbon emissions, sustainability risks, all the beautiful things we want to hear when we think about sustainability and climate. And then it goes down and it says, some of the companies that are already part of the select group are, Deloitte, Watershed, Airbus. So again, the scale, the money is there and the focus is on the big companies, because this program alone is going to be $1 billion in the next 6 years. So a bank financing $1 billion or willing to deploy $1 billion in climate tech with a screening of a tech company as Google, coming from a group of companies. They're already either partnering with Google in their groups and etc. But the scale or how not to leave behind the importance of the SMEs or the smaller scale companies in countries that they are so rich in knowledge, because when we're talking about an Airbus or Google or HSBC, all these global companies, of course, you bring the idea on policy from a global level, but how can we work on policies and investment and development in technology from the bottom up as well, from companies that are so rich in this communication. So I just want to give this example on how money flows and scale is so important to that. But I see a lot of yellow hands up, so I'm going to stop talking.
Thank you, Elaine. Really interesting insights. Over to Radhika.
Thank you. Thank you, Belen, for raising this very interesting question. I remember a colleague from Ashoka and a friend, Iman Bibar, saying scale isn't just how large you grow, it's how deep you go. And she was talking in the context of grassroots women entrepreneurs, which really kind of touched me. That can you really make a deep change in a small community? That is a different way of thinking of scale, especially in the grassroots. And to me, intersecting this with AI, of course, there are a lot of challenges and biases and problems with AI, which many of us touched on today. I do believe that AI can also be a tool for very powerful change, especially around scaling deep in the way Iman talks about it. For example, there is another Ashoka fellow in India, Mukti Bosco, who's working with self-help communities in villages for healthcare where there are no doctors. And in places like this, I have heard of tools where doctors can actually, when there are no doctors, there is an AI tool being developed at Johns Hopkins, which actually from a phone can do a little bit of diagnostics. So I'm thinking now that the healthcare workers who are villagers from little villages in India that Mukti works with, if they had this tool on their phone, which can auto-diagnose kind of what might be happening, when you don't have doctors, that is a way of scaling healthcare deep. Another example, we are in the policy lab right now, is at Stanford. There is a project called the Deliberative Polling Project, where and the participatory decision-making project. These enable small communities for everyone in the community to get the voice heard by policymakers, decision makers. Not just that, now from their phone, they can online contribute on any manner they can get their voice into informing policy. And here in the US, a few cities are experimenting now. Every citizen, they don't just get to vote the council members, they get to get their voice in by texting in even at a micro decision level. So I'll wrap up by saying I think actually technology and digital innovation, especially AI, has a huge role to play in scaling deep in the grassroots, not just the large giant organizations.
Thank you, Radhika. It's so interesting also to hear good practices and successful stories. And I'm happy you brought the AI theme. It would be good to know also like how could policymakers embrace this, like support this small scale organizations. Adri, over to you. I see your hands up.
Rather prefer to talk a little bit at the end, maybe.
Okay, wonderful. I saw your hand was raised, so
yeah.
Or we'll be glad to hear.
Yeah, hi to everyone. I have to say, in like a short time, it feels really, really insightful, this event. And in fact, I would like to ask Elaine a question. Like, from my experience, before coming to Hecho por Nosotros, I'm studying right now, I'm doing my master's in political science, in European studies, and I noticed something that in a really short time, in which I'm in Hecho por Nosotros, I discovered much more about what is concerning policies of sustainability. And I would like to understand from your point of view two things. First of all, in your opinion, what's the reason why universities in political science do not talk too much about sustainability, like circular economy, etc.? And secondly, what should be the main policies to act on to bring the sustainability problem, which is an enormous problem today and for the future, to universities today around the world?
Thank you. Thank you, Or. I'm not an academic, and I'm not in a position to criticize how academia creates their syllabus, but I bring the same kind of question to the world of business. So you come from the world of policy and government making. And I do the same thing with, for instance, Harvard Business School. That's my alma mater. Why it takes so long for the reaction from professors to bring something that occupies our news stories, our newspapers, our day-to-day lives in the way that change business? Because I'm pretty sure the business that we are discussing in the same way that governments are dealing with their policies, their day-to-day is about this transformation, innovation on how to behave for the future that is unfolding in front of our eyes. So when we come to academia, my only thought, again, is not a criticism, but I think my hypothesis is that it takes time to change how professors create what they're doing. And what they are offering right now is still in schools is based on a creation of jobs or a preparation for future people for the workforce from an old format, for something that it's not yet catching up with this the need for sustainability, the climate change, or all the other things. So when we hear about, for instance, innovation and technology and etc., it's almost something that is moonshots, or companies they're forcing the population and the civil society to embrace technology, but it's almost initiated by business, and then the rest of us need to catch up. The rest of us need to learn about it. We need to educate our kids on how to use it, but not necessarily the people they're studying to be professionals in the world of business, and the professionals in the world of government, creating policy and seeing things that we need regulation on, are being studied in schools. So it's not a criticism, I think is my hypothesis, and it takes time, but I hope it catches up, because again, the curve and the steepness that we need to react, as business are reacting and as governments are reacting and civil society are demanding much more, the programs that today are goods to have, the sustainability certificate or something that comes in extra from the basic syllabus from schools, will become a need to have, hopefully soon, because it is something that everybody needs. Over.
In fact, I have noticed, first of all, thank you. And in fact, I've noticed that in faculties of economics, they talk a lot about circular systems, regenerative systems. And in fact, I think like in the academia world, all the sustainability thing is much more talked in practical terms, more in economics than in politics. But at the same time, we need to invest much more in building young professionals and young policymakers that know what it takes and what it is about when talking about sustainability. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you for the great insights. Indeed, it's key, similar to what happens with gender equality. It's not something that happens from one day to the other, but rather like you need to start equipping people, etc., and that starts in academia. That was a great point. Or Keith, maybe we can do a brief intervention, and after Adriana will share some examples and experiences before finishing the lab. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here with everyone. I'm Keith Coleman, co-chair of the Breakthrough Alliance, which is along with the UN Joint SDG Fund, really focusing on accelerating the Sustainable Development Goals. Some of the things that folks just described kind of touch me in one particular way, and that is that this issue of engaging folks on a local level, those who are dealing with and experiencing these issues firsthand. This challenge of having a top-down approach is not new. Whenever there's policy made or economic research, it's always as though the concepts for solutions, come from a much more macro point of view. And that's not a new issue. So I think that's really need to have a reframing. And as Elaine described in terms of HSBC and Google, I mean, that is at such scale that and not having read what Elaine was speaking to, but that kind of mechanism from the outset seems to have left behind those at a local level. And that continues to occur, I believe, at a policy perspective, time and time again. And so years ago, when I used to do research for Department of Commerce and Department of Labor, those very things also existed when you looked at community organizations that were talked to rather than talked with and co-created with. And so I think that's a framing issue that we really need to spend some more time on, because folks know what those solutions are at that local level. And the matter that Radhika described in terms of scale, not just wide, but how deep, is particularly appropriate with respect to that. And so I think that the value of small organizations and people at a local level needs to be reaffirmed and readdressed in that way. And so there's some institutions on campus at Stanford that are actually doing that in a very dynamic and vibrant way. The Door School of Sustainability is very focused on that kind of outward point of view. And the Breakthrough Alliance and the Joint SDG Fund have a good relationship with the Door School of Sustainability in that way. And also the Graduate School of Business and the work that they're doing in social innovation. And as the gentleman described, to try and continue to sort of create and foster new young folks that are engaged in that work from an academic perspective. And so the GSB is doing that work, as well. So in terms of what Elaine was describing on the academic side, again, Stanford's a good example of that, and other universities as well. But there oftentimes is a disconnect between those ivory towers of academia and the marketplace and people. And so I think there's, again, continued focus and a need for work in that arena. And the Breakthrough Alliance and the Joint SDG Fund are working hand in hand to do that. So I'm very excited that this group has been convened, and look forward to continuing efforts moving forward.
Thank you, Kit. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure to listen to you all. I was wondering if Jack would like to add anything. Sorry for putting you in the spotlight, but yeah, it was so interesting to listen to your experience during the panel. Like you as a founder of a startup, maybe is there anything in terms of policy making that you experience that would benefit to small businesses? Or yeah, otherwise we can go over to Advi.
Absolutely. What we worked on through the Paris Peace Forum over, I guess, 2020 through 2023 was focusing on how AI might impact the global South and what kinds of proactive policy measures could be put into place to avoid its most dire consequences. That's not to say that it's not a very positive force for change in the world. It's not to say that there can't be a great deal of investment put in at the small level, so ground up, to make sure that these technologies are used in ways that actually benefit communities. A big part of the problem, of course, is ownership. Who owns the large models? And that's something that needs to be addressed as we go into the next decade. I really believe that more competition, a diversity of ideas. Some of the programs that Keith mentioned are working very strongly on those fronts to make sure that there's a broad array of different solutions to apply these technologies in ways that are both sustainable and impactful for communities. So it's about getting more voices into the mix as quickly as possible and helping people get up to speed with understanding, as much as that burden is a heavy burden, to have to ask consumers to follow the news, to understand what's going on the AI front. It really is essential that we're all on the same page and that we all understand what the implications are long run. So that's my take from policy and entrepreneurship. And I again appreciate the opportunity to have been here.
Thank you, Jack. Really insightful. To wrap up, Adriana, over to you.
Yeah, I would like to say that listening to so many key professionals that sure they are interested in this journey. All these years, I found how much is requested to a social entrepreneur, to people that are creating real solutions. And the reality is that they are not really included, and the conversation with policymakers